Yesterday we were talking about the Eved Ivri, the Eved Ivri, this, and we had asked the question. We had spoken about why a single man versus a married man, and the master is allowed to give him a maidservant. But the expression I used in the Gemara, uses is Eved Ivri, Oved es Rabo. In fact, that is not to eat in the Parsha shiur. In front of the Chumash, not respectful for the Chumash. The Gemara says you could drink but not eat. The Gemara says that an Eved Ivri is Oved es Rabo b'yom v'layla. He serves the master by day and by night. Now, the plain meaning we said yesterday what it means to serve the master by day and by night, but the extension is daytime always represents when things are going well. Sun is shining, everybody's in a good mood, that's daytime. Night always represents ordeals, gullus. I think Elie Wiesel's first book was called Night. Night is always when things are bleak and darkness, and Yaakov fights with the ministering angel of Esav through the night, meaning symbolically he's fighting through the night of exile. And then eventually the sun shines. So the commentaries say an Eved Ivri serves his master by day and by night refers to every one of us, which means every one of us is an Eved Ivri because we are all servants to Hashem. And a Torah Jew has to know that sometimes you have to serve Hashem by day and you have to serve Hashem at night. That means that we have to serve Hashem when things are going our way. And we have to serve Hashem when the ball rolls in the other direction, where sometimes things are not going our way. And it could be that a person's not feeling well physically or financially, or has some sort of other aggravation, or it could be a person is in a concentration camp, or he's in Siberia by the Russians. Even then, a Torah Jew has to muster up the ability to serve Hashem with all his to serve Hashem. That means we serve by day. I had a Rebbe who once said, anybody could learn Torah when they feel like it. The trick is to learn Torah when you don't feel like it. Anybody could be nice when they feel well. When you got a headache and you got pressure and this or whatever other issues in your life, then it's not so nice to be nice. It's not so easy to be nice. I was once at camp. When I was at camp, and we were in the cabin. I remember there was one big guy, and he said he couldn't sleep at night. He said, "If I can't sleep, nobody sleeps." And that's often what it's like in the family. You could have somebody who doesn't feel well and turns into the family monster. Just that somebody doesn't feel well, so all of a sudden the rest of the family has to suffer. So there was an incident. There was a couple that got married. It was a documented incident. A couple got married, and about 3 months after the wedding, they were in a car accident, and the husband's brainstem was shattered. So he was in the hospital on a respirator, and the doctor said there's obviously no hope, no recovery over it. There's no chance of recovery. And the wife, devastated, married 3 months, and she'd come into the hospital, she'd sit with him and talk to him, whatever it is. No response. He's a complete vegetable. There's no response. And this went on for weeks and months, and eventually she decides she has to make a life for herself because, she's a married woman. He can't give her a get. There's no get by proxy. Can't give a get, and she's not a widow because he's alive. So she actually went to medical school. And once a week, she would come into the hospital and sit with her husband for 10 minutes, and that was it. And this went on and on and on. And she graduated from medical school. This is going on for years. And one day, she was sitting in the hospital with him after she already became a doctor. She was sitting in the hospital with him, and because of her medical training, she could see there were signs of a heart attack. He was having a heart attack, and so now she had a choice. She could either push the button for what do you call it? To push the button to call in the staff, or she could just ignore. She could apply CPR, push the button, and get him resuscitated, or she could just let him die and be released of this trap, this Gehenna that she's in. So without a moment's hesitation, she pushed the button, applied CPR, kept him alive. And then she went to ask a halachic authority. She went to ask a halachic authority whether she was obligated to do so. Rabbi Yitzchak Zilberstein. And he said, the Torah says, "Lo samar al dam re'echa," do not stand by your fellow's blood. Torah does not distinguish between somebody who's healthy or not healthy. And you had to do what you did. And then he said, only somebody whose ancestors stood at Har Sinai could have done something like that. That's the end of the story. That's the end of the story. Now you're expecting, and then he got better, and they all lived happily ever after. So I told this story to my kids once at Shalashudis. And this was one of these, what? They were little at the time. And I told my kids this story. The mistake I made was my parents were over at the time. So I told my kids this story, and my kids are all looking at me like this. And then my mother looks at me across the table, and she goes, and then, like the happy. And I said, no, it was a happy ending. It's not the happy ending we would have written to the story. The happy ending is that a Jew understands that they have to serve a Kadosh Baruch Hu under all circumstances. That was the story that I told the kids. That I learned, don't tell them stories like that if mom's around, because then I get in trouble. But yeah, obviously, and then there is a question, by the way, of even there is a big halacha question about resuscitation. Not in all circumstances are we obligated to resuscitate. So that happened to be that one situation. But that's what it means that an Eved Ivri serves the master by day and by night. Now, that's number one. Now, number two, the Torah then goes on to do something to say something. This has to be understood in the proper perspective. Take a look at we're on 418, fourth line from the top. So if the guy decides that he wants to stay, he serves his 6-year term as a servant, and then he decides he wants to stay on for 49 years, till the Yovel. So the Torah describes staying on forever. So look what the Torah says to do. V'higisho, second line from the top side. V'higisho Adonav Eloi Elohim, takes him to the court. V'higisho El Hadelas El Hamizuzah. He takes him to the door or the doorpost, which is actually the door. V'rotza Adonav Ezozno B'martzeh, he drills his ear va'avoda le'olam. Then he serves him forever. And forever doesn't mean forever. Here, forever means until the Yovel. So what happened? This guy served for 6 years, and he says, hey, I want to stay on with my master. I want to stay on as a servant for good. So what do we take? We take and we drill his ear. Drill his ear and let him stay on for good. Now, the question here becomes, what's with the drilling of the ear? And if he's already going to drill his ear, why don't you drill his ear immediately? Just drill his ear as soon as you sold him, as soon as he became a servant. So the answer is that this guy, why would a guy want to stay on? You've been serving for 6 years. Now, why would you? Now, you've been here 6 years. Now go take your life in your own hands now. Why does he want to stay on? So this guy believes the door to success is closed to him, that Hashem can't help him out. He believes the door to Parnasa is closed. What do you do when you're with the owner? You work, and you got free room and board. You got room, you got board taken care of, you got no bills to pay. It's like living on kibbutz. All you got to do is work. So it's not the Torah's attitude. The Torah's attitude is, hey, you have to see your faith is in the master instead of faith is in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we drill his ear into the door. Why? Because the door and the mezuzah, when they were in Mitzrayim, what happened on that door and on that mezuzah? Remember on the night of the firstborn, they put the blood on it, which was the sign to the Jewish people, you're going free. So what are you taking on another master for now? It's one thing that you stole, but what are you taking on the master? You're voluntarily taking servitude now. So you didn't get the message. Drilling the ear means open up your ear and hear what the Torah was trying to tell you with that blood on the door. What was the Torah trying to, I told you last week, listening, hearing, shomea, can mean two things. It could be to hear about it. It could be to understand the significance. Vayishma Yisro. He heard the significance of the splitting of the sea. It's not just hearing, I heard about it. I heard about it, and therefore I went on with my life. I heard about it, and I understand what the significance is. So a person should hear what happened over here. Try to internalize that. You didn't do it? We drill your ear into the door. You drill his ear into the door, standing up. So I saw one of the commentators, very clever, very interesting shot. I think it's the who was it? I think maybe the Chizkuni, one of the Rishonim. He says, you know why you drill his ear into the door? Because what if this guy runs away? He runs away from the master. Now, how do we identify that? And then another guy comes and says, hey, he's a servant by me. How do we identify him? Well, take him up to the door. If your ear matches the whole height at the door, so you're the guy. Come here, put his ear up. Let's see what's happening by the hole. If it's the right height, so then you're obviously the guy. So it's also an embarrassment. Obviously, it's embarrassing for the guy. And there's the idea that the reason we didn't do it originally is because he already got one punishment. The punishment of being sold to begin with. That was a punishment. Now after 6 years, you want to stay here. What you're telling me retroactively is you didn't even see that as a punishment because you're enjoying what's happening. Okay, so now we'll give you a drilling. Now we'll drill you. Okay. And then the Torah goes on to the next section. When a man sells his daughter as a maidservant, she does not leave the way slaves normally leave. Now, aren't you shocked? Anything shocking here? When a man sells his daughter? Hey, Bela, can you fold the laundry? Oh, I don't feel like it. All right, I'm selling you. Oh, wait, you're selling your daughter? What's it selling? Trade them, lag them, they collect them. What is it? Go sell your daughter. What's the Torah want over here? What's the Torah telling you? And then what happens? He sells her to the master. Imra b'nei adonai asher lo yadav hefda. You don't, if the master doesn't want to marry her, so you can't go and sell her off to somebody else. So what's going on? What's going on here? What does the Torah want? So the answer is, who would sell his daughter? What? Excellent. There's sometimes in life you're in a situation of the lesser of two evils. I'm not selling my daughter, because there are halachas about selling the daughter. You sell her to another Jew, and she's hired as a servant in the house, and the first choice is that he or his son should marry her. Why am I doing it? Why are you doing it? You're doing it because you don't have what to feed her. Nobody goes and sells his daughter if he's got what to support her. But you're putting her, you're selling her and putting her in his jurisdiction because you need her to get fed. She'll have a job. At least she'll be taken care of. To the contrary, it's not an act of cruelty over here. It's compassion. You have compassion on your daughter, and the ultimate compassion is somebody else should marry her. So the Torah says you could sell her because the Torah is trying to teach us compassion. I told you I once said it to my daughter. I once threatened my 7-year-old daughter. She was giving me a hard time. I said, according to Halacha, I could sell you, don't you? She looked at me and she goes, yeah, but you won't. I didn't. Maybe I should have. Oh, did she? Oh. That's okay, I married her off. I told you, every time my son-in-law turns his back on me, I just go, So the what do you call it? Now, look at here. Now in Parshas Mishpatim we have a whole bunch of mitzvahs. This is, I think, the parsha with either the most or the second most mitzvahs in the Torah. Is that you have Parshas Mishpatim, which just has one mitzvah after another. A lot of it is monetary law. Then you have Parshas Kedoshim in the book of Vayikra, and you have Parshas Kiseitze in the book of Dvarim, which have the most mitzvahs in the Torah. Okay, so the Torah says like this. This guy's supposed to marry her. Now look towards the bottom of the page. Ima acheres yikach lo. Let's say the owner or his son marries this girl. 418, 2 lines to the bottom. She'era kisusa ve'onasa lo yigra. He must not deprive her of her marital rights, her clothing, her food, and living together. He's not allowed to deprive her. That means this guy marries this maidservant, then he marries another woman. And so could be the Torah say taking a precaution over it. Well, she was only a maidservant anyway. Maybe, Torah says she's entitled to all of her rights. Now this pasuk is something that feminists never seem to bring up. They never seem to object to this. The marriage relationship is mentioned twice in the written Torah. This is one of them. The husband's obligation to his wife. Anybody know where the second time is? No, I mean, it talks about the various forms of marriage. Where the marriage obligation is, what the obligations are in marriage is mentioned twice in the Torah. This is one of them, and this is fully on the husband. Where's the other one, and who should it be on? If the first one is on the husband, the next one should be on the woman. But it isn't. Right? The second one is on the husband also. Feminists somehow skipped that part of the Torah. What does the second one say? That in the first year of marriage, v'simach ishtah, was gladden his wife. It doesn't say she has to gladden him. It says he has to gladden her. And not only that, Rashi points out that it specifically doesn't, when it says v'simach ishtah, it doesn't mean he has to rejoice with her. Because he has to make her happy. How do you like that?
Only in the first year.
And that was that?
Only in the first year.
Only in the first year. After that, after that, you can torment her. Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely not. And the Torah says that he has to make her happy. Twice the written Torah talks about it. Both is the husband's obligation. What about the wife's obligation that we learn in the oral Torah? That the Gemara says in Ksubas what a wife has to do for her. She has to cook and clean and do this, that, and the other. But this, the feminists generally skip this part over here. Financial obligation is on you. How do you like that? You know the story, there's a woman, I once saw an interview, there's a woman in Chicago who won she won like $4 or $5 million in the lottery. So they said to her, they were interviewing her on TV, they said to her, Mrs. Murphy, do you have something you'd like to say? She said, yes. Sears, Roebuck and Company, I quit. Now, any wife could do that to her husband. A wife could come home from her job and she could say, I got good news and I got bad news. The good news is there was no traffic on the way home today. The bad news is I quit my job. And the husband has zero legal recourse. All you can do is say to your wife, thank you very much for what you've contributed to life. She's got no obligation to him. A husband who comes home and says to his wife, I've decided to stop working. She says, I've got good news and I've got bad news. The good news is Beis Din is not far away from here. The bad news is they're going to flog you if you don't go to work. Because in the old days, they would do that. A husband who wouldn't support his family, they would actually whip him until he supported his family. How do you like that? Nowadays, they don't have that. They don't have that ability nowadays. Wouldn't be so bad if they did. But they don't have that ability nowadays. The obligation is completely on the husband. That nobody fetches about. Nobody's worried about that. The feminists aren't worried about that. And it's a tremendous burden. Now, if a wife has given a verbal commitment to her husband, she said, listen, I'm marrying you, and don't worry, I'll work so you could learn in Kolo. So that's very nice, and she should try to fulfill her commitment. But if she ever comes home and says to her husband, listen, I thought I could do it, but I can't. It's just overwhelming for me. He's got the obligation now to figure out how to support her because he gave her a ksuba.
I heard a thing like that, where like the wife is like, oh yeah, I want to work, you can be in Kolo, and then like 10 years down the line, like they have a couple kids, and then she's like,
I can't do it anymore. It happens all the time. It happens all the time. That's right. And the husband has an obligation. He has got a financial obligation, a legal obligation. And sometimes it happens that a wife gets pregnant and she can't work. Sometimes a wife has problems with pregnancy and she has to be on bed rest. So what are you going to do? So okay, that's life. Hashem rides the world. But at the end of the day, the financial obligation is the husband. Okay. Now, if you look. I want to show you something I want to just show you something interesting. You see where it says on 418, 4 lines from the bottom. So it says again, V'chiyim karishes bita la'am, and a man sells his daughter. Then it says, Imra'a beinei adoneha, if she does not find favor in the eyes of her master, asher lo ya'ada v'hefda. How does he answer to translate? He is not designated for himself. So then he assists in her redemption. But le'am nochri lo yimshol le'mochra bevigdova. He is not allowed to sell her to somebody else. Now look at that word bevigdo, gentlemen. Bevigdo means the article translated as he is a betrayed her. What does it say? Betrayed her? Yeah, right. He has betrayed her. What is the word beged? Bevigdo, betrayal. What's the root of the word beged? What? Clothing. What's clothing got to do with betrayal? You know that a bogade is, in modern Hebrew, bogade is called an adulterer. Bogade is in the military, what's it called? A guy who brigade is a guy. What's the crime? A treason, or what is it? Treason? You're brigade. You're unfaithful. What's it got to do with beged? What's it got to do with beged? Yeah, what's it got to do with clothing? What's it got to do with clothing? When's the first clothing in history come about? Because what did they do? They were unfaithful to Hashem. That's what a beged is. Beged is something. Beged is also called a levush. Levush is a garment which is related to the Hebrew word busha, which is shame. It covers over a person's shame. Me'il is a garment. Me'il also, when a person desecrates holy items, what's it called? Mo'el behegdish. Me'ilah. What's it got to do with a coat? Again, these are all related to the concept of lack of faith. So what is this guy called Bevigdo Ba? He has shown himself, if he didn't marry her, which was the goal to begin with, so this girl has support, he has shown himself to be an empty garment. He has shown himself to be an empty garment. You're a beged with nothing in the inside. Like we would call it in, Rav Hirsch says, like in the vernacular, he says, he's just an empty bag. It's an empty garment. There's nothing there, no substance there. So often the clothing is something that obviously is an identifying feature for us. Clothing is an identifying feature. It's just a person has to know that the clothing, sometimes people put a little too much weight, too much emphasis on the clothes. I think there's a song out now, I don't need your bekisha. Have you heard that? I don't even know how it goes. Some guy goes to the Rebbe and the Rebbe says, I don't need your bekisha, I just need you. Because sometimes there's a lot of emphasis on. Have you heard that? How does it go? I don't. I just.
The only thing I need is you.
The only thing I need is you. Yeah, and your wallet. But the what do you call it? I don't need. Listen, we do need the bekisha. We do need the clothing. We need to identify ourselves. When I was 18, I asked Rabbi Nevinsal, who lives in the old city, the Rav of the old city, Rabbi Victor Nevinsal, is a big Talmid Chacham. So I once asked, I was 18 years old, I asked him, why do frum Jews dress the way they do? I was in my knitted yarmulke and my B'nai Akiva, what do you call it? He was, and I asked him, how come the blackies dress the way they do? With the outfit and the suit, the black, everything's black. So he said to me, when you see one of them walking towards you, can you tell he's a Jew? I go, wow, profound. I was 18. I said, wow, what a great answer. Because it's true. And you see him, and he could tell it's a Jew or Amish. But generally in Yerushalayim, unless you're somewhere in Pennsylvania or Ohio, it's probably going to be a frum Jew. So there's the clothing plays a role for us. The clothing must play a role. There's a story about a guy.
So we're closed-minded?
Yeah, we are very close-minded. Yes, and more than one. Yes, we are close-minded, and I mind your clothes also. Yeah. So there's a story about a guy who's an actor. What was the story? He's an actor. He's an unemployed actor, and he's trying to get a job. So he goes to looks in the want ads. There's a zoo, and the most popular attraction in the zoo are the monkeys. And they have this monkey who does put on a tremendous show, and Chico the monkey, and he does a great job, but he died. So they need an actor to play the job of the monkey. They don't want to tell paying customers that he died because it's going to cost the zoo a lot of money. So they get this guy, and he happens to be one of these. He goes and he auditions, and he's just a natural monkey. The guy's great. So they give him a monkey uniform, and you know the story. He's in the zoo, and he's acting as the monkey, and the crowds are there, and they're cheering. Everybody's thrilled. It's on, and it's wonderful. And then he's starting to use the trapeze, and even uses his tail. And one day he's swinging, and the people are cheering, and he doesn't know his own strength, and he flies up over the top of the cage. He lands down right in the lion's cage next to him. He's 10 feet away from the lion, and he's looking at this lion, and the lion starts walking towards him, and he's like, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. The line goes, Baruch Shem Kivod Malchus, so little Laved. His Moshe, is that you? He says, yeah, Chaim, what are you doing here? And the zebra in the next cage says, would you guys keep it down? We're all going to lose our jobs over here. So what happened? Sometimes a person thinks we lose sight of who we are. Are we the outside garment or what's inside? Right? We're supposed to build ourselves up from the inside. The outside is an identification. It's not who we are. It's not who we are. That's the connection to the Beged. Okay, now let's go on. The Torah then says, Make eat. One second, I just want to see where it is in the mitzvahs over here. Yeah. Pasuk Yud Beis. Make ish v'meis mos yumos. When somebody smites somebody else, he has to be put to death. Now, if a person, is this the right pasuk? What pasuk is this? Yeah. If a person, make ish v'meis mos yumos, somebody who kills somebody else has to be put to death. If he didn't do it on purpose, so then he has a place to run to, which is called the cities of refuge. Now, one of the things that you see that the irony is that the Torah talks a whole lot about execution. You do this, you die, both you must, steal, etc. And it was rarely carried out. You needed exact evidence, and you needed the whole base. The circumstances were almost impossible for it to be carried out. In Christianity, other religions, they're talking about peace, turn the other cheek, right? Isn't that one of the things you're supposed to do when somebody smacks you? Just say, ooh, here, take this one also. Give me your best shot. Isn't that what you're supposed to do? And then what do you call it? And in the meantime, they've slaughtered millions of people through history. After all the preaching about peace and love, all they've done is slaughtered people. Us, them, other people. They once had Israel. I remember in Time magazine, some anti-Semite was writing some of Israel. There was in one of their wars. So they described Israel, the country that never turns the other cheek. Now, I didn't see America turning the other cheek when they got bombed in Pearl Harbor. Right? I didn't see them turning the other cheek over there. So you see, what do you call it? At the end of the day, the whole thing's a narishkeit. The Torah talks about it in terms of how. So we should understand how severe the avera is. You know how severe it is to worship idols. Person deserves to die. Can't necessarily execute because we're not looking to have bodies rolling in the streets, and we don't have enough evidence and so on. But you have to know how bad it is to break Shabbos. You have to know how bad it is to eat non-kosher food. You have to know how bad it is. How is it going to actually be implemented and carried out? Not always, because we might not have the circumstances, might not be right for it. Now, take a look. The next one, it says, Umake, pasuk says, Umake aviv v'imo mos yumas. One who hits his parents shall die. Now here you have, it's only if you draw blood or cause a bruise. A bruise means that the blood has congealed under the skin. That means there's been a movement, their blood has gotten released. Somebody who hits his father, hits his mother, and actually draws blood is liable for the death penalty. This is one of the reasons why this has a practical halacha. Now, I don't know a whole lot of people who go around beating up their parents, but there is a practical halacha here. Let's say a son is a medical person to give an injection to his father, that it is best not to have the son do it according to halacha. That the son, the doctor, my son, the doctor. But your son, the doctor, is somebody talk to your friends about not have him do unless there's nobody else available. Or daughter. Because if they, if they give the injection and they draw blood, so it had to be done and so on and so forth, but there's still, the Torah says don't draw blood. The Vilna Gaon says even a baby, you get a 2-year-old who's sitting on his father's lap and all of a sudden, he nails him right in the face or scratches him and there's blood. The Vilna Gaon says obviously he's not responsible for his actions, but when he becomes an adult, he should do tshuva for it because of the severity of it. Don't worry, Hashem. You just say, they just say, I regret having made my father bleed. That's all. Obviously, it's not his fault because he's done, but the Vilna Gaon says he should do tshuva. If he drew blood Buddy Ryan. You ever hear Buddy Ryan? You guys didn't ever heard of Buddy Ryan? He was the defensive coach for the Chicago Bears when they won the Super Bowl in 1985, the famous 4-6 defense. So Buddy Ryan was a former Marine. So he said when he grew up, him and his brothers used to put a rope around in the backyard like a boxing ring. He had 3 brothers, and they would box. They would punch each other out in the boxing ring. That was how they entertained. My brother and I played Monopoly. They would punch each other. Then I punched them. They would punch each other out in the boxing ring. So then he went off to the army. When he came back to the army, he came back for the Marines. He was the oldest brother. He came back to the Marines wearing his uniform. He thought he was hot stuff. So his father said, get in the ring. His father said, because he came strutting into the house like he's something. His father said, get in the ring. So he got into the ring with his father, which is not a good idea because then you're going to have to hit your father. You're liable for the death. But he got into the ring with his father. His father jumped up and landed. He pinned right on, he stood on his feet. So Buddy Ryan couldn't move. And they beat him to a pulp. His father beat him to a pulp. That was welcome home, son. No, when I came home from Yeshiva, my mother put out some food. Here's welcome home. Boom. Now, if he hits back, it's a problem. If he hits, even in entertainment, it's a problem. You have to be very careful of that. And if a person does accidentally draw blood from their parents, then they would have to do tshuva for that.
Even if it was defense?
What? In self-defense, yeah. A person is allowed in self-defense, but even then, a person should try to avoid getting in that situation where they have to defend. Okay, now turn on ahead. I want to show you, because this is a little bit strange. It's not something we're used to. Page Perek Chaf Beis Pasuk Yud Zayin, 22:17. So here it says, it's top of page 430. Mechashefa lo sechaya. A witch must not be allowed to live. Mechashefa lo sechaya. A witch must not be allowed to live. Now, here we are talking about supernatural witchcraft. And the Torah, if you notice, first of all, what's a male witch called? A warlock is the correct word. A wizard is a subcategory of a warlock. And a male witch is not allowed. That means that we're talking here about supernatural witchcraft. If a woman is practicing supernatural witchcraft, lo sechaya, she must not be allowed to live. She is liable for the stoning penalty. Now, if the question that everybody asks is if witchcraft exists today, is there such thing as supernatural witchcraft? According to some of the commentaries, there is. But one second. According to some of the commentaries, there is supernatural witchcraft. Whether they've lost the discipline or not, at one point it did exist. The Rambam has a certain view which has to be understood to understand what the Rambam really means. But at the end of the day, the Gemara talks all over the place about witchcraft. One of the remarkable things the Gemara says is that one of the ways you could avoid witchcraft is by standing in water. Witchcraft has no effect on somebody who's connected to water, which is very interesting because in The Wizard of Oz, how does she get rid of her? Okay? She dumps the water at her. I'm melting. Where did they get that idea from, of all places? So I told you, I think I have a hunch that, some Jewish guy dropped out of yeshiva, probably was one of the writers, and that was one of the things he remembered from the Gemara. Was something about, probably, I probably learned that, that he remembered. What a Chezkas Gimel Shanim is that he didn't remember so well. Or Shora Muad. But witchcraft, that he probably, that was probably more interesting. So that he probably remembered. Okay. What is witchcraft? How does witchcraft work? So the answer is, the Gemara says that kshafim, which is witchcraft, at least I'll get to you, just 1 second. Kshafim, it comes from the expression makhishim pamalya shalmala. That witchcraft, for lack of a better term, it interferes with the heavenly forces. And what that means is this. Did you ever hear the expression that every blade of grass has an angel that tells it to grow? Mm-hmm. What that means is everything in the physical world has a corresponding spiritual counterpart. And when it says telling the blade of grass to grow, it's not like the malach is standing there like, grow, grow, grow. And like the fans like, go, go, go. The malach, it means that there's got a physical, some sort of spiritual counterpart. Witchcraft, according to the Sefer Chinuch, the most basic definition, obviously it's more than that, but the most basic definition of witchcraft is the ability to tap into the higher forces, cross them over somehow, and bring about an effect in the physical world. And it's severely prohibited. It's a cousin of idol worship. So the Torah says somebody who's a practitioner of witchcraft has to be put to death. Alicia, what are we going to ask?
So you say that we have to stone them.
Not we. We don't do that anyway. We get stoned. We don't do the stoning, and taking grandmother's wheelchairs. But we don't. What do you call it? We don't. We don't do any of this putting to death today.
So
Go ahead.
Let's say a person is deserving of stoning, burning, or hanging.
Yeah.
Say you kill them in a different way.
Yeah.
Is that are you getting punished for not killing them in the way according to they're supposed to be put to death?
Your question is crossing over on itself. It's an interesting question. The Gemara says even though the 4 forms of capital punishment from the Sanhedrin no longer exist, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings it about in this world in different ways. The person who's liable for stoning could fall off the roof and so on and so forth. There are different ways that it could happen. When it comes about through a person, so sometimes the person becomes Hashem's vehicle for a mitzvah. Sometimes the person is lacking the merits, and therefore bad things happen through this person. But that's not our subject right now. Here, it's talking about the idea of Bechashef Elochim Tzarayim. Now, the question many people ask is, well, if it's prohibited, if it's prohibited, so why did Hashem give this person that ability? Why do they have that ability to perform? If it's usher, so why does Hashem give the person the ability? What's that? Excellent. That becomes their tested life. The fact that somebody has an ability doesn't mean, we're told, well, you have an ability, you're supposed to use it. That's true to a certain extent. If a person has a talent or a person is gifted, let's say you have a good voice and you could be a chazan, you should be a chazan. But it could also be a test. That just because you're a chazan doesn't mean you should, what if they ask you to sing in a club? That becomes a test, because that you're not allowed to do. If a person's got the ability, I had a friend who was a broadcaster for, he had a degree in broadcasting. He was a Hasidic guy, but he had a degree in his previous life. He had been he had a degree in communications, broadcasting, and he walked into Kol Yisrael off the street. He walked in an audition to Kol Yisrael. He was better than any of the other announcers. He became the guy who announced the English news every night at 8 o'clock. And he was better than anybody else. Now, at a certain point, he went to Rav Scheinberg Zatzal, and he asked Rav Scheinberg, am I allowed, when I'm broadcasting the news? The problem is that the news involves a lot of Lashon Hara. This politician did this, and this politician did that. A lot of guys did a lot of bad things. Am I allowed to? So Rav Scheinberg gave him certain guidelines. But sometimes, just because you've got the ability to do something doesn't mean that you're allowed to do it. Alex Hammond has the ability to climb tall buildings, like Taiwan. What's the tower? Taipai Tower in Taiwan. What's it called? The 101. You don't know about this guy? This free climber. The guy who climbed El Capitan. Alex Hammond. Alex Hammond. He just climbed 101 without any safety net, without anything else. He's got a rare ability. You're not allowed to do it. A person's not allowed to put himself in danger like that. To climbing up. He's got an ability. Yeah, I don't have that ability. I do have the ability to pickpocket. I would be a very good pickpocket. I think it's a good parnasa. It's a good parnasa, and you just got to kind of sneak him in, and nobody would suspect me. The fact that I've got the ability to shoplift, I think I'd be a great shoplifter. I'd be a great shop. Nab some of those candy bars I always wanted. But I've got the great ability, so what? Doesn't mean you're allowed to do it. And therefore the Torah, this becomes for many people a test. Imagine a woman with a great voice. There are women, Jewish frum women who have great voices, and they're limited in what they can perform. They could only perform in front of other women.
Can they perform anonymously, Rabbi?
No. Could they perform anonymously in front of men?
Yeah, like they have like records because no one knows what she looks like.
It doesn't. For the most part, it's a problem. Most posts would say you can't listen to a woman's voice even on the radio or on a right. But whatever it is, it's a test. So why does a person have this ability? Sometimes in life, the ability is a test. Let's say somebody's a great chef. You want to be, you're just a talented chef. You went to culinary school, you're a talented chef. What are you going to do, be a cook in a Jewish restaurant? Are you going to make some more kugel and meatballs? You know, you'd like to get on beyond, you know, so you want to get into a French restaurant, you know, with something with snails and stuff, you know, and wine and treva. Oh, sorry, you're going to have to suppress it. The fact that you have the ability can sometimes be a test. The fact that somebody has an ability is sometimes a test for a person. A person doesn't know. And it's a difficult thing. Obviously, you have to ask a shaila. Everybody asks, anybody who's got an ability of an area, so then you'd have to ask a halachic shaila. You have to ask a halachic authority. Okay. I'm just going through a few of these because there's so many halachas here. I just want to show you a few of the things that come out of here. Take a look at, somebody had a question. No question? Okay. Right, so let's go on. Yeah, go ahead, Alicia. What do you got?
No, you say you'll be a good shoplifter.
Yeah,
you'll be a shoplifter if you get caught.
You're right. In France, I told you in France they say that like a tourist, some guy sees a tourist in downtown in Paris, and they see a tourist, and the guy will walk up to the tourist and say, "By the way, there are pickpockets in the neighborhood, in the area." What's the first thing you're going to do if somebody would say that to you? First thing, guy comes over and says there are pickpockets in here. What's the first thing you're going to do? The first thing you do is like that. His partner is watching, and he sees exactly where that hand goes. Within 30 seconds, you're gone. Your wallet's gone or your phone is gone. I love it. I love that sort of stuff. So if anybody wants to join me to I'll be you be the guy who goes up to him. I'll be the other guy. And we'll talk afterward. Okay. Could you imagine? I love that. I love that sort. Yeah, I love that sort of scheme. That. I'm intrigued by that. Okay. Don't tell anybody I said so. Okay. All right, you know, we'll keep this for tomorrow. Just remember that if the review questions on Mishpatim are available at David B. What's my name? Oh, davidbkaplan.com. The review questions on Mishpatim and the stories. Anybody who's interested in what do you call it? For enhancing the Shabbos table. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow, Mir Tzashem.